Cette édition de Décryptage reçoit Bogolo Kenewendo, conseillère spéciale et directrice Afrique des champions de haut niveau des Nations Unies sur le changement climatique. Avec elle, nous discutons des mesures d'adaptation au changement climatique et de la question du marché du carbone comme vecteur de croissance économique dans un contexte marqué par les revendications des pays africains pour des compensations économiques liées à la préservation de la biodiversité. Madame Bogolo Kenewendo, soyez la bienvenue sur Africa 24. Vous êtes la conseillère spéciale et directrice Afrique des champions de haut niveau des Nations Unies sur le changement climatique. Vous avez participé à l'Africa Business Forum 2023 qui s'est tenu à Addis Abeba sous le thème « Faire fonctionner les marchés du carbone pour l'Afrique ». Quel était l'intérêt pour vous de prendre part à cet événement?
Well, first of all, it was a big feat for us to have a business forum on the margins of the AU being solely focused on the development of carbon markets and what the projects, carbon projects actually look like. And I say that it's a big feat because last year and 2 years ago, carbon markets were not at the tip of everyone's tongue, but the fact that an AU business forum can have a sole focus on this means that we're making progress. And the reason why we are particularly excited about it is during COP27 with partners from SE for All, GAP and UNECA, we launched the Africa Carbon Market Initiative, and we want to see more African credits being traded globally. The market right now is it's growing quite exponentially. A lot of money is being made. Well over $100 billion in 2022 has been traded in the compliance markets and over $2 billion in the voluntary carbon markets. So why shouldn't the continent be prepared to tap into that market, because we are in need of the fiscal stability and liquidity.
Cela fait 13 ans que l'Afrique attend la concrétisation de la promesse des pays riches et principaux pollueurs de contribuer à hauteur de 100 milliards de dollars par an afin d'aider les pays africains à développer de meilleures stratégies d'adaptation au changement climatique. Pensez-vous que le marché du carbone soit une alternative?
Absolutely not. It's not an alternative. It is one of the solutions for African countries to find ways of increasing financial flows for development while pursuing a green development pathway. We are still expectant of the pledges that were made. We still do need for wealthy countries and those that have benefited from increased emissions to pay developing countries, especially those that are much more vulnerable to climate shocks. So carbon markets and us wanting Africans to play a bigger role here is because we are aware Africa holds the keys to nature assets. We provide lungs to the world. And so we should be getting compensated for providing lungs to the world. And I must clarify that, you know, when we think about it, our common goals and common agenda of climate action and a future of 1.5 degrees relies on there being a good and strong biodiversity and nature asset, similarly with strong decarbonization agenda from businesses. So these two together are the only way that we can make sure that we get to this future. But without nature, without compensating for nature, without thinking about the opportunity cost for the communities that are caring for the lungs and us paying for them, then we are facing a missed opportunity.
Quelles sont les opportunités économiques que les marchés du carbone offrent aux pays africains aujourd'hui?
You know, it's very interesting that you started from that perspective. And the way we thought about the African Carbon Markets Initiative was we are bringing all the various players together in a similar fashion of the AFCFTA. We know that it's nowhere close to the AFCFTA, but we know that consolidation and having one voice and working together towards one common goal can actually help to speed up a process. And at the moment, we are looking at nature assets trading between $3 to $10 per ton of carbon, and yet in the compliance markets it can go anywhere between $60 to $125. And we want to make sure that those that are trading particularly high quality, high integrity credits out of the continent get fair value and are able to increase their options for financing for development. And if we only get about $50 per ton annually, we can get close to $30 billion per annum in the continent if we accelerate the production of carbon projects. So 30 billion is not a joke. And we already have the assets. Who sits on assets and doesn't use them? When you discover minerals, you do everything you can to get the minerals out of the ground, to start trading them. You start thinking about the value addition, and you start thinking about what those rentals can do for your development. It's the same thing. We shouldn't just be looking at the Congo Basin and thinking it's so pretty that we have these lush forests, or thinking about the Okavango Delta and saying these pitlands look so beautiful for biodiversity. But instead, this is an asset, and we should be unlocking value from it. And we believe that more activity within the carbon market space, both compliance and voluntary markets, will generate good value for the continent.
En tant que directrice Afrique aux Nations Unies pour le changement climatique, pensez-vous à des projets visant à apporter des solutions concrètes face aux conséquences des changements climatiques en Afrique?
Absolutely. I think that's all we think about. We think about what a green development pathway looks like for the continent. And we stress the development side of it, which is we recognize people must be at the heart of any transition. A transition will not be just and will not be beneficial if it is not inclusive. It is not thinking about providing education, if it's not thinking about affordable and accessible power, if it's not thinking about the creation of jobs. So we are consistently thinking within the climate action space, provision of water and water resources, power. We're thinking about clean cooking solutions. But most importantly right now, at the top of our mind is how do we unlock more climate finance to flow to the continent? Because as it stands, we are only beneficiaries of about 4% or so of global climate finance. And it has been growing exponentially in the last couple of years. We should see more. And our needs, they have been determined. The Africa group of negotiators have shared that we need trillions of dollars in order to really work on our adaptation and mitigation strategies and to implement our nationally determined contributions. So we need the 100 billion. We need innovation like carbon markets. We need to start thinking about climate debt swaps. Any piece that can assist us to work on the development of the continent in a way that is also sustainable and environmentally friendly is very critical to us right now. And in a manner that we can also avoid the impacts of a polycrisis. We are out of COVID. We are dealing with climate shocks. Every week there's a flood somewhere. Right now, Botswana, South Africa, there's been is it a typhoon? I'm forgetting the name, but there's a climate shock right now happening. Rain, there's drainage, storms and so forth. And we need to prepare our economies for increased vulnerabilities to climate shocks. But most importantly, we need to make sure that our development doesn't create more instabilities.
Vous avez été ministre de l'Investissement, du Commerce et de l'Industrie au Botswana. La ZLECA fait entrer en vigueur en janvier 2021 et devrait participer à une croissance économique considérable en Afrique. Quels pourraient être les bénéfices de ce projet de marché commun pour le Botswana?
We're asking specifically about Botswana. First of all, I am so happy to see that Botswana finally submitted the instruments of ratification, and it was during this summit. And there are many opportunities. Botswana is a small economy. It can position itself into being the gateway into Africa. The doing business environment is really good. We changed the process of starting a business and operating a business in Botswana. It's easy. You can start it from here. I could challenge you right now. Go online and start a business in Botswana. And by sheer geographical position and by the enabling business environment, Botswana stands to benefit by positioning itself to be in the gateway into the continent, but also by having the right human capital investments and ensuring that we are attracting investors into Botswana. Another thing is, as a small economy, we need to create resilience. And resilience, we have learned during COVID that sometimes it comes from your neighbors. You must strengthen your trade with your neighbors before you strengthen your trade elsewhere. Talk right now is about nearshoring, friendshoring, and so forth. And the AFCFTA is no different. You build resilience. It's a building block to multilateralism. You start at home and then you go out.
Bogolo Kenewendo, vous êtes la conseillère spéciale et directrice Afrique des champions de haut niveau des Nations Unies sur le changement climatique. Merci d'avoir répondu aux questions d'Africa 24.